It's a woke hellscape and the taxes are way too high. As a pastor living near Chicago, I've talked with a lot of people who want to leave Illinois. During the last few years, I've seen dozens of people relocate to states that better match their cultural and political values. The truth is, I'm sympathetic to those who want to leave. My views are not well represented in our government, and taxes are absolutely annoying here. I live in a small house on a small lot, and my mom, who has 20 acres up in northern Michigan, she pays like a third of the property taxes that I do. Some people on fixed income simply can't afford to pay the taxes here. I'm also sympathetic to parents who want the best for their kids. If your only educational option is public schooling and the school system in your area is hostile to your values, I understand why you might choose to leave. There are good reasons to move, but there are also bad reasons. And in this series, I want to help us think honestly about our motivations. But in this first video, I just want to point out that feeling out of step with culture is not a new experience for God's people. God's Old Testament people spent decades living in exile away from their nation. And through the prophets, God encouraged them to settle in instead of leaving. He tells them to build houses and plant gardens and to marry. The prophet Jeremiah challenges them to seek the peace and the prosperity of the city to which I have carried you in exile. And then he says to pray for their city because they will prosper if their city prospers. The early church had a similar experience. It wasn't comfortable for them to live in the pagan cities where they lived. But when the Apostle Paul traveled throughout the Roman Empire, his goal wasn't to get all the Christians together in one province so they could create some kind of Christian utopia. No, his goal was to plant healthy churches so they could proclaim the good news about Jesus wherever they were. Being spread out was actually an advantage because it allowed more people around them to hear the good news about Jesus. If Christians today are concerned with reaching people who don't yet know Jesus, perhaps they should consider staying in places where there are a lot of people who don't yet know Jesus. If you feel marginalized in the state where you live, congratulations. You are experiencing what God's people have experienced throughout history. It can be deeply uncomfortable to live in places where most of the people disagree with you. But sometimes these are the very places that God wants us to be. And we might actually be surprised how much we can thrive when we choose to stay.